This is part 4 of Federalist 58. Madison answered back to his critics that we will add the number of representatives to the House of Representatives will not stay at 65. As population grows, this number will also increase. And towards the end, this last long paragraph, he says that there should be a limit though. You can't just keep on adding numbers. You don't want 1,000 people, 2,000 person assembly. Because he says what will happen is if the number increases to way too many, normally you're going to have some really unwise people just get in there by luck or by whatever reason. So all your representatives are not going to be smart. And then they will be easily duped and moved by powerful orators to do things that will be, or to vote for things that would not be good for the good of the country, or to move people away from doing things that is going to be good for the country. And I'm almost positive the person he had in mind was Patrick Henry, who was from his own state, the state of Virginia. And as I said in part 1, Jefferson and Madison really hated him because he was such a powerful orator that regardless of whatever Jefferson or Madison would do in the state assembly or House of Burgesses, whatever you want to call it, Patrick Henry could stand up and talk and move a lot of people towards his position, even though his position probably was not the good position. So Madison is indirectly saying, yes, this thing will happen. A demagogue and a good orator combined will appear and will ruin things for you. So this is the last, no, I'm sorry, it's not the last paragraph. I'm going to read the last 2 paragraphs. In this review of the Constitution of the House of Representatives, I have passed over the circumstances of economy which, in the present state of affairs, might have had some effect in lessening the temporary number of representatives, and a disregard of which would probably have been as rich a theme of declamation against the Constitution as has been furnished by the smallness of the number proposed. I omit also any remarks on the difficulty which might be found, under present circumstances, in engaging in the federal service a large number of such characters as the people will probably elect. One observation, however, I must be permitted to add on this subject as claiming, in my judgment, a very serious attention. So he says, I want to bring to your attention something very important. It is that in all legislative assemblies, the greater the number composing them may be, the fewer will be the men who will in fact direct their proceedings. In the first place, the more numerous any assembly may be, of whatever characters composed, the greater is known to be the ascendancy of passion over reason. So passion takes over. In the next place, the larger the number, the greater will be the proportion of members of limited information and weak capacities. Now, it is precisely on characters of this description, on these weak people, that the eloquence and address of the few are known to act with all their force. In the ancient republics, where the whole body of the people assembled in person, a single orator or an artful statesman was generally seen to rule with as complete a sway as if a scepter had been placed in his single hand. On the same principle, the more multitudinous a representative assembly may be rendered, the more it will partake of the infirmities incident to collective meetings of the people. So the larger the number you have, the more passion will take over. Demagogues or powerful orators can sway the vote into a direction which is not to the good of the people, and all sorts of other things will happen. All that will not be good for the work of the assembly. Ignorance will be the dupe of cunning, and passion the slave of sophistry and declamation. This is beautiful. Ignorance will be the dupe of cunning, and passion the slave of sophistry and declamation. The people can never err more than in supposing that by multiplying their representatives beyond a certain limit, they strengthen the barrier against the government of a few. Experience will forever admonish them that, on the contrary, after securing a sufficient number for the purposes of safety, of local information, and diffusive sympathy with the whole society, they will counteract their own views by every addition to their representatives. So when you have enough members in there that are going to do what these things that we just mentioned, after securing a sufficient number for the purposes of safety and local information. So you have to have the right amount of representatives so you have information about every part of the country, and yet not too many people that will cause us to have the headache we just talked about. The countenance of the government may become more democratic, but the soul that animates it will be more oligarchic. So if you have a huge number there, you might think that it's going to be a reflection of all sorts of the people that live in the country. But all you'll see is an oligarchy, because, like we said, a lot of those representatives that get into these huge assemblies are not going to be reasonable people. They're going to be passionate people. And then a good orator can move them one way or the other. So the control is actually in the hands of the orator, not in the hands of all those numbers of people. So in effect, it becomes an oligarchy. The machine will be enlarged, but the fewer and often the more secret will be the springs by which its motions are directed. And now the last paragraph. As connected with the objection against the number of representatives, may properly be here noticed that which has been suggested against the number made competent for legislative business. It has been said that more than a majority ought to have been required for a quorum, and in particular cases, if not in all, more than a majority of a quorum for a decision. That some advantages might have resulted from such a precaution cannot be denied. It might have been an additional shield to some particular interests and another obstacle generally to hasty and partial measures. But these considerations are outweighed by the inconveniences in the opposite scale. In all cases where justice or the general good might require new laws to be passed or active measures to be pursued, the fundamental principle of free government would be reversed. It would be no longer the majority that would rule. The power would be transferred to the minority. Were the defensive privilege limited to particular cases, an interested minority might take advantage of it to screen themselves from equitable sacrifices to the general weal, or in particular emergencies to extort unreasonable indulgences. Lastly, it would facilitate and foster the baneful practice of secessions, a practice which has shown itself even in states where a majority only is required. A practice subversive of all the principles of order and regular government. A practice which leads more directly to public convulsions and the ruin of popular governments than any other which has yet been displayed amongst us. So about this last paragraph, we'll talk elsewhere. It's good to look at it again. So please read along as you listen to these readings, and make sure that you listen and read the whole thing, all the 85 papers, because it will make much more sense then. Thank you.